Boom. Okay, what's the number? We'll do Q&A until we reach a certain number. Then we can really start. So someone pick a magic number. I'm going to start wrenching a bit because it's late. So at the end of this, we're going to rebuild this rear end. Talk about setup a bit. 100. Is 100 a good number? I think we'll achieve 100. Let's do 4,000. Yeah, we're never gonna do this then. Okay, 117. Okay, so I don't know. Times are desperate. Maybe you need to share this on the pages of the people that shall not be mentioned by name or by nickname. Maybe spam those guys. That usually helps. $74. We're at 74 right now. We need 117 people. When can we expect a 1/10 off-road from you? Most likely never, as a JQ buggy at least. But I would like to make 10 scale cars, but it would have to be a different brand. So not JQ is 8 scale only. 10 scale would be a different brand, but I would enjoy making 10 scale buggies. 89. I guess more questions then. Okay, we're over 100, that's good. So we need 117 and then we start. Until then, I'll be wrenching and answering questions. And actually, I kind of took that picture of the cars and thought, hey, I'll do a Facebook Live, and then I didn't plan anything. What an idiot. I should have planned what I'm gonna say. It's dropping, people, it's dropping. You aren't sharing enough. If there's 100 people here, then if you all shared this, I bet we'd get 117 people watching. Did you drive the B74 yet? No. My B74 looks like this. I'm doing some top secret R&D right now in preparation for Reedy. Why is there so much drama? Because social media increases the levels of drama in the world. Also, people are pretty soft. Softies, snowflakes. People can't handle the truth. That's why there's so much drama. Okay, we only need 6 more people. What's your least favorite thing about RC? Marshalling, definitely. I hate marshalling. Marshalling is bad. Yeah, I think marshalling. Oh, we made it. Damn. 243 for Tim Geiser. You know, Tim Geiser is 3-time world champion, 22 years old. That's impressive. But, and there's a but. I'm sorry, but there's a but. I still want to see him win a world championship when the other guys stay healthy. Cairoli, he had a big lead in the championship, then he got injured, eventually lost his lead, then he got even more injured and he was out. Hurlings was out from the start. Hurlings did what? One race? Broke his ankle on the sighting lap and won anyway. Then didn't line up for the second moto. That's pretty impressive. Okay, 129. We have to start this shit. Wait, one more question. Do you find limiting up travel on the shocks helps improve the handling on 8-scale buggies on rough, blown out tracks? No, that's the opposite. If you limit up travel, it's going to be worse on rough, blown out tracks. Okay. What's the longest time you've been on Facebook without being banned? I'm not sure, but years. Many years. Did you actually win these cups in the back, or is it just prop? I'm going to prove this to you. Which ones? Here's one. This one I'm really proud of because I beat David Ronnefalk in Sweden. We don't need to tell anyone that his flywheel pin came out. Anyway, time to start. We have enough people to catch up with the comments. Scrap your crap cars, still have the Durangos, and we're still gonna make some videos. That's gonna be fun. Okay, so Q&A is done. Now we have to talk about something. We have to talk about something that other people lie about. That was one of the topics, right? I said that I would talk about stuff, the truth about stuff others lie about. And today I was thinking, because I've been testing some other cars here at the local track, and I was thinking that's actually a good topic, because you hear this a lot, I feel, in RC, that like Kanai even said in some interview, he doesn't look at the other cars, he doesn't drive other cars, and yeah, obviously that's not true. Of course he looks at the other cars, of course he drives other. I mean, do you think he just suddenly woke up and decided to do 17.5 C-hubs? No, of course he didn't. He looks at other cars, he drives other cars. Everyone does it, and if you don't, it's silly. Why wouldn't you? You can learn. I mean, in Formula One, for example, they have spies. There was even a Spygate one year in Formula One when one team was spying on another. Was it McLaren had some guy that was spying and got caught? And I mean, it's a big deal. They try, in Formula One, they really work hard to just hide what they're doing so other teams can't, figure it out and copy them. So yeah, copying, I think that's the problem, because in RC, there's this thing of, there's a stigma around copying. So every time a car comes out, someone says, oh, they just copied that car. Oh, they just copied that car. And I think some companies are kind of known for being just a copy brand. They just copy someone else. People say, oh, Associated just copied the Mugen, or X-Ray copied this car or that car. So there's this sort of stigma around copying. So designers, engineers in RC brands, they like to say that, oh, we don't look at other cars. Well, of course they do. And I think there's nothing wrong with copying, actually, if you know what you're doing. If a brand has a really good idea and you check it out, and you understand what's going on, and you think, oh, this is the right direction to go in. So you copy the idea, but you don't just copy the outer layer without understanding what's going on. You incorporate it in your design, of a car that you've been developing. So you're developing a car, you take an idea from someone else, you incorporate it in your design, and you understand why it works, how it works, that's fine. When you just copy and you don't understand what's going on, I think that's where the problem lies. Like, that's not something that I think is good to do, because you're kind of stuck then. Then you just kind of have to wait for someone else to do something else, and then you just copy them. So I don't have a problem with copying as such, or worrying that other people think, oh, JQ is copying them or copying this car. I really don't care, because I like to understand everything about the car and how it works and why it works a certain way. And that's how I develop the car further. If it happens to be the same as some other brand, I don't mind. Great minds think alike. By the way, before we really get going talking about the Kyosho I have here, MP9. And I got my friends associated. Such a sexy body on this one. I have some really bad news. So I came home and there was no adult beverage in the fridge. And in Finland there's this ridiculous law that after 9 p.m. you can't buy alcohol. So I was in a real pickle, because I'm supposed to have this Facebook Live and I don't have any original long drinks. All I have is this. This is mehu kivennäisvesi sitruuna. So I don't know exactly how this will go, but I'll do my best. So anyway, people seem to have this thing about copying. They don't want to admit that they look at other cars, and they don't want to be accused of copying. And people say, I mean, some brands make the most obvious copy decisions, just like this 17.5 C hub. It's so stupid. If you have 16 and 17 and 18 and you have everything, a 17.5 isn't going to do shit. Seriously. Just because HP had it and won the worlds, and everyone thinks they need 17.5. So I'm never going to make 17.5. That's like my pet peeve right now. So let's go back in history. This was the first car. The first car JQ Racing ever made. Actually, it was JQ products back then. And it was super narrow. It was sort of 10 scale like, very nimble, fast, did everything quick. And that's because you have to remember when this was designed. This was designed back in, what was it, 2007, 2008? You know, then it took a few years to get on the market. 2010 it was released. And during that time, Kyosho released the MP9 in 2008, I think, for the Worlds. I ran Hobao, the Hyper 8. All the cars back then, they were heavier, kind of lazier, not as much steering, not as nimble. And then Losi came on the scene with the 8. So the Losi car was narrow, it was more nimble, it jumped better, the weight was further forward, the car was narrower, more 10 scale style geometry. And our friend, the captain, Drake, he came to Neo, dominated, TQ'd and won. Travis Mezcua went to the Raw Nationals, TQ'd every qualifying round. I think, was it 6 qualifying rounds he TQ'd? He broke something in the main. So that car just came on the scene and started winning everywhere, and everyone was looking like, wow, that's changing the game. HB, they made the D8, won the Worlds with it. Also, you know, 10 scale style geometry, kind of moving away from the old school way of making 8 scale buggies. So in that time, that's when I designed this car. So I was on board with that. Okay, we have to make the new era of 8 scale buggies, you know, narrow, weight forward, a lot of steering, all that stuff. Well, at that time, MP9 was released. It wasn't that good also. people forget. Cody King was the only one to make the main with the MP9 in Charlotte. And the other Kyosho drivers, I remember some of them, they were struggling. They didn't really like the new MP9. And I took that as being like, you know, these like old school designs, they're on the way out. Now it's a new era. So then move on a couple of years. Kyosho has 2 years under its belt and the MP9 is getting really good. 2010 Worlds in Thailand, track was really difficult. Cody King wins. T-Bow TQs. Then the next, I would say maybe 2010 to 2015, that was like the MP9 years. So we had the TLR years before that, and then it became the MP9 years. Back to the sort of old school design. Suddenly, Mugen wins the Worlds in Argentina. Associated are making an 8 scale. Basically, they're just putting Kyosho parts on the Associated. So it was a Kyoshiated at that point. Mayfield made the main with that. Yannick made the main with that too. So it started shifting again to, you know, wider cars, more stable cars. Maybe the TLR wasn't all that after all. And I realized that also with my own car. So after releasing the car, I realized it's really fast, but it's too twitchy, it's too nervous, it's too hard to drive. And that also, when I was wondering about the future of my car, that's when this thing happened. So I don't remember the year anymore, but this, you have to remember. So we went from the TLR years to the MP9 era. So the MP9 at that point was winning everything. Ronefalk was dominating in Europe. You know, he could just put city beams on and still TQ qualifying rounds. T-Bow was doing really well. Elliott TQ'd the Worlds in Argentina. You know, like I said, King won in Thailand. So this thing, I think this is the TKI3. So this thing was really good, and this was the time when everyone was like, it's the shocks, you know. So everyone was running Kyosho shocks. Associated guys all had to. Associated was probably one of Kyosho's best customers in America. Let's face it. Everyone had Kyosho shocks on their buggies. Oh, it's the shocks. And some people, oh, it's the big centered diff. Oh, it's always something. Like everyone had a theory on why the MP9 was so good. And so I was at the point where I had my car and I was thinking, okay, this didn't really work out. So I think the fact that it's so narrow, it's just too aggressive, too nervous. Everything happens too quick. Or the arms are too short. I was learning about geometry, understanding how the, you know, camber gain, roll centers, all that stuff. And I figured that, okay, now I understand why my car is doing these things. And I can't solve it with this. I need longer arms. Yes, I need longer arms. I need to make it wider to make it more stable. But how wide and where should the arms be in the hubs and all that stuff? And what about those shocks? And what about the big center diff and all this stuff? So me and my friend Ada Yuva, who started the company with me, we got this car. We got the magic Japanese, what did I call it? I think the magic Japanese car, I used to call it in my blogs. So we got the magic Japanese car and we proceeded to disprove every single theory that anyone had. So we went to a really rough track and we drove the MP9. We drove first the JQ car and, you know, it was pretty hard to drive. Then we drove the MP9 and it's like, oh yeah, it's on pillows. This is so good. Oh my God. Why did we hop on this trend of new cars? Bad connection. Let me see. 1 second. Okay, back. Where was I? Yeah, so yeah, the MP9 was going good. So then we took the JQ shocks off the JQ car, which wasn't that good on that rough track, Suspension didn't feel that good. It was twitchy. It was hard to drive. Took the shocks off, put them on the Kyosho. It was still good. Okay? Okay. Maybe it's the diff. Took the JQ diff, popped the JQ center diff into the Kyosho. It was still good. Okay, well, people say it's the 3mm chassis. At this point, we had a 4mm chassis. Maybe it's the flex. We made the MP9 so stiff that there was no flex in any, like it was just solid. So we had JQ shocks, JQ center diff, solid chassis. It was still good. We're like, God damn. So it's not the shocks, it's not the center diff, and it's not the chassis flexing. This was bad news because we realized there's no easy fix. There is nothing, you can't look at it and it's like, that's it. We tried all those things. Everything people said, oh, this is why it's good. We disproved it. Okay, we also tried it the other way. We took the Kyosho shocks, put them on the JQ. Nah, didn't really help. My internet speed sucks. It should. This is 4G of my phone, people. Yeah, so we took the Kyosho center diff, put it in the JQ. Nope, that didn't solve it either. So we had to go to work. And that's when I did most of my work on learning about geometry and understanding the roll centers and all that stuff. And that's how the white edition was born, the new platform. We had some, there were some things that I wanted to do differently, but couldn't because we couldn't make new gearboxes. So the white edition was like the closest I could get with everything I had learned. And then after that, kept developing, did the LV and now the black edition. So now we have the JQ black edition and this magic Japanese car, the MP9, which, I mean, it's still a good car. I don't have an MP10, but I'm gonna talk about that too. And then associated, which is world champion Ongaro's, just incredible at times. So I figured I have a Kyosho, I want to run that again now and see how I've improved and how it feels now compared to the JQ. And then I want to run an associated also because that's, you know, the world champion car right now. Ongaro looks amazing with it. You know, I want to see what's going on. So now we get to the fun stuff. So where do I start? Let's start with the black edition, okay? I'm gonna start with the JQ black edition. Okay, actually, this one I have some new stuff on. I have some C-hubs and knuckles with inclination here. Trying some new geometry on towers and on hubs. You know, the latest and greatest. The 100 guys will know soon. I would say that the black edition is a car that it has really good rear traction and the steering is smooth, but you have enough of it. And it accelerates really well, it jumps really well. The biggest issue I think that we have with the JQ car is when it's really hot weather and if it's really high bite, especially if it's a mix of high bite with dust. So the grip level changes. So it's not a consistent traction level throughout the track. So inconsistent grip, hot weather. That's the worst kind of situation to run the JQ Black Edition in, I think. The best kind of track is, let's say, something like a watered US track, like Thunder Rally, that gets a bit rough. And I mean, it gets rough and dusty, but I think the traction there is pretty consistent. Like the whole track has the same kind of traction. It's a bit loamy, you know, it gets a bit rough. Like those kind of tracks, it's awesome. And the reason is, with the Black Edition, you can drive slow and you'll be fast. So it's almost like every time you're at the track, your slowest lap, when you really just calm down and slow down for the corners and hit your lines, and that's going to be your fastest lap. Because the car is naturally fast. It carries its speed, it accelerates well. You just have to drive it calm and you'll be fast. So that makes it, I think that's the reason really that your sort of open class guys, average guys, almost whatever car they come from, they try a JQ, they're immediately comfortable because it has traction, it has decent steering, you know, not too aggressive, and they just sort of drive around the track, not doing anything special, and the lap time is good. And they're like, what the hell? So it has that. But like I said, when the traction is inconsistent, when it's hot weather, that's when we have problems. And the problem is on power. So when you get on power with the Black Edition, especially if it's rough, also like if it's inconsistent traction and bumpy, that's when it gets hard to drive. You can't accelerate as well through those sections, like accelerating through a sweep onto a straight, for example, and it's a bit, you know, grippy line with some dust, some bumps. Like the car just doesn't want to track through that. It gets edgy and out of shape. So we've noticed it gets edgy like that when the diffs start working. So we run pretty thick diffs or thick diff oils, and this reduces that effect. So we can get away with running thick diff oil, so the diffs don't want to diff out, which makes the car more stable on power. And the car itself has so much grip, and it's fast when you drive it slow, that the thick diffs don't matter. You can get away with it. So that's one recommendation I have. If you have the car and you feel that it's hard to drive, try thicker diffs, like clearly thicker diffs than others. Like put 20,000 in the front and 15 or 20,000 in the center and 10,000 in the rear. Like really, you can get away with it. It just makes it really stable. So that's really what I need to work on the Black Edition too. I want to keep it so it's still naturally fast. Your slowest lap is still a great lap time. But I also want to make it so it's easier to drive on power. And it's more consistent and easy to drive when the traction levels vary a lot on the track. So you have a grippy line with a dust outside the groove, for example. So yeah, that's how the Black Edition is. And then the Kyosho. So this was really interesting because I've been running the JQ car for a long time now, and I've you know, from time to time run the Kyosho, but now not for, I would say, maybe 2 years. 2 or 3 years I haven't run this thing now. And now I did. And I'm pretty happy with the results in a way, because when I first put the Kyosho on the track, I had that same sensation. I had that same like Japanese magic car feeling like, damn, this thing is so good. But then I look at the lap times, and I was actually half a second slower than with my own car. But the thing is that it felt better. It felt easier to drive. I felt more comfortable, and I thought man, that was a good lap time. Like, I definitely am faster with this, but I'm actually half a second slower. And this has to do with the fact that the MP9 is super stable. I think it pushed a bit, like the setup I had on, how I ran it now on this track, it pushed a bit. I needed a bit more steering, I would say. But, you know, nothing special. I had good rear grip. And when I did a good lap, it really felt good. But just the lap time wasn't there. So the thing is, when it's possible with the MP9 to do a slow lap and you're just slow. Like with the JQ, that doesn't happen. You do a slow lap and you're fast. So that's an interesting difference. So on the Kyosho, it's so stable, it feels so good that you can do a slow lap, but you are slow. So you have to drive it more aggressively in certain sections to maintain that corner speed to get the lap time down. But yeah, for sure, the MP9 felt the best. Like if you just go by without lap times, you just drive the cars and you feel like, how does it feel? Yeah, it felt the best. It did everything so smooth. It was consistent, easy. I could just click lap after lap after lap. It was just, I was that bit off the pace. Then we take this thing. Okay. Now, I'm basing this opinion not only on this car, because this is Arto Heinonen's car, and oh my god, it was a complete disaster. There was a lot wrong with this thing. I drove it first, I was like, Jesus Christ, what's going on here? And then, you know, I had to work on it a bit, had to Google some setups, and had to change some bent hinge pins, and change, what did I have to change? There's a bunch of stuff wrong. Oh yeah, the A block was bent, and I mean, there was so much bent, broken, and binding on this thing. And he had overdrive, underdrive, this and that, and all this gearing. Oh my god. So I had to figure all of that out. Okay, and now I ran it yesterday and again today. And I've run other people's associated too. So I kind of had an idea. And this car again is different to the JQ and the Kyosho. I would say that the JQ and the Kyosho are similar. They're similar in the way that you drive it and you just feel comfortable immediately because you have good rear traction. So you have good rear traction and then the car turns maintaining traction. So you have a four-wheel drive car with good grip, you turn it, that's where it goes. You want to go straight, it goes straight. As I said, the difference being the Kyosho feels better than the JQ, but the JQ is faster on a clean lap than the Kyosho. To do 60 minutes of clean laps, easier with the Kyosho because it's easier, but you kind of get the point. But they're similar. They drive in a very similar fashion. The Associated, completely different. When I first put it out on the track, even today, after I kind of rebuilt everything, I still felt like, oh, I had to get used to it. Like the front end is so aggressive. It dominates the car. It almost feels like the front and the rear are two different cars. It doesn't feel connected somehow. So you have a lot of steering, but it's not consistent also. So some sections you might have a lot, then it pushes a bit, you get on power up, then it hooks. So you have to get used to that. Then also another thing, it almost feels like the front is driving the car and the rear end is kind of just following, sliding around. It's like a snake-like feeling. So if you go in a chicane, for example, the first laps were kind of all over the place because I was surprised. Like I turn into the chicane, then I turn the other way, and then I expect to go straight, but it continues to turn. You know, so these things, really talented drivers adapt to this immediately. So the best way to kind of tell if a car is good or not is to watch a driver's first couple of laps. Because then you can tell what a car is doing, what the car naturally wants to do. And then after that, drivers tend to adapt. So even me, I mean, with me, it doesn't happen as quickly and as well with the best drivers in the world. But I can notice myself that from the first tank when I drive it to then, let's say I take a break, I go back, it's like a completely different car because somehow I've adapted, my brain has processed the information, I automatically know what to do. And then the car looks good going through the chicane. But the car is still the same car that just 10 minutes earlier turned left first, then turned right, then kept on turning, and I hit the pipe. Like, the car is the same, but I know what to do. Does that make sense? So, this was actually interesting because I should say that the Associated was actually the fastest car. So both days, I had the fastest single lap with the Associated. So I didn't run my car too much and I made no changes. I just kind of got the base, like, okay, this is kind of normal. Yeah, okay. So the Kyosho on best lap tended to be about half a second slower than the JQ. And the Associated on best lap was about half a second faster than with my JQ. I ended up doing the same, pretty close to the same 5-minute times with all, but I had one really good run with Associated, which would have been faster, but guess what? The goddamn pressure line broke, and I didn't want to fry my engine, so I pulled off, but that run would have been the best. So anyway, I've been curious about the Associated because of a few reasons. So there are drivers who run Associated and are quite inconsistent. One example is Spencer Rivkin. So he wins the Nationals when it's at Thornhill, then he's in the B main at DNC, and he doesn't make the main at the Worlds. I mean, what the hell? This guy can drive, he's fast, he beats everyone in Thornhill. Why doesn't he do so well when the track is inconsistent and bumpy and 8-scale style? Why does he do well when it's flat, consistent grip? I think I understand now. You can also look at someone like Jamie Clancy. Why can he out-qualify Boots when it's at his home track, but then he goes to another track and he's in the quarterfinals? Why is it that Ongaro can be heads and shoulders above everyone, TQing, just dominating, but then he's in a race with someone and he starts making weird mistakes? DXR, when Ongaro's tires ran out and he had to race Lutz, do you remember that race? He started crashing and doing donuts and like, what the hell? It was weird watching that main. Like at one point, I literally thought that his car broke. Like, oh shit, he broke a servo or something. They just kept on going. Like, what's happening? Well, this is my theory. You can hate on me later in the comments, but this is my theory. Having tried Artos completely whacked out setup with everything binding and all of that, okay, the car drove a certain way. The front end was dominating, the rear end was kind of sliding around. If you drove it within what the car was capable of doing, you were fine. You pushed it over that, it started doing weird shit. I fixed the car, put on a different setup, same thing. I've driven other people's Associateds, same sort of feeling, where it's very fast. When you get in your groove, when you get in a groove and you're doing lap after lap after lap, you can just get faster and faster and faster. You're super fast. But you have to drive it a certain way. You have to do the corners a certain way. You have to have certain lines. You have to use your throttle and steering, and like you have to be in a rhythm when you drive it. Because if you have to lap another car, take a different line, do something different, the car might do, it might do something out of ordinary. And that's something I definitely noticed. And that could explain why Clancy can beat Boots when he's on a track that he's done thousands of laps on, and he knows, and he's just like, his muscle memory and everything's in tune and he's in his groove. He can do it. Go to a different track, the car isn't doing what he expects it to do. It's like me when I just put it on the track and couldn't do the chicane. That's Clancy when he goes to a track he hasn't done thousands of laps on. That's when Ongaro's tires wear out and he can't just do his normal rhythm. He has to race someone. You even saw it at the Euros. Like when he was just driving, he was doing well. Then he had to race Ronefalk and he made mistakes. So I think it's in the car's nature, I would say, to be that way. Super fast, but it also bites you. And yeah, to me, it just felt like the front and rear end, they weren't speaking the same language. So fastest car, but I haven't tried it on many different tracks, but I can just sort of, I get the feeling that this car, you could go to a different track and it would feel completely different. And you would have to kind of relearn to drive or make changes in the setup or something like that. That's the feeling I get. So associated drivers, they can chime in and let me know, but that's the feeling I got. Okay, so yes, I had differences in the best lap times, but I'm pretty sure if I spent a day with all of those 3 cars, I could do the same best lap with all of them. But what I really wanted to do with this test was sort of figure out each car's characteristics, like what is this car like? And yeah, to conclude, I would say it like this. So the MP9 is the easiest car to drive, very consistent. I believe that this car, you can go to any track, it will just be the same. Like the first lap you do, you're comfortable. You know the car, feels the same always, you just do your thing. But it comes at a price. It can be slow, it can feel good, yet be a bit slow at the same time. So you really have to work with the small things, like you have to adjust your camber just right. You have to adjust your towing, your down travel. Like basically, if you look at the setup sheet, the setup looks the same, but you've adjusted tiny things on the settings just to find some more speed. And also you have to remember to drive aggressively, drive fast, and you'll be super fast with it. But yeah, it's definitely like, if the race was put your car down for the first time on the track and do the fastest lap, yeah, I think the MP9 would be really good at that. Okay, the JQ, similar to the Kyosho, because it has this similar stability, good traction, it turns maintaining traction. So it's also the kind of car that you go to any track and you feel comfortable immediately, and you know what the car's going to do. But unlike the Kyosho, it tends to be so that your slowest lap is your fastest lap. So if you just kind of back off a bit, calm down a bit, slow down, go keep a tight line, do your thing in control, your lap time will be faster. So it's a bit faster, but then on the other hand, it suffers on power. Like I said, rough track, inconsistent grip, on power, not as good as the Kyosho. So Kyosho, for example, if you watch that video I put up, there's this, you kind of do a double jump at the very end of the lap. Double jump into this small chicane, then you turn left, and then you accelerate through a corner onto the front straight. So that corner is a bit rough, and there are some bumps coming onto the straight. And there it's interesting because I feel like the JQ car isn't very good there. Like every lap is a bit different, and I kind of have to correct, like, oh, I'm gonna oversteer because I hit that bump, or I'm gonna push wide, I need to turn a bit more. So I can't kind of get through there smoothly. And it's because I hit a bump on power, the diffs start diffing out, and the car gets unsettled. Kyosho, I go through that section. Yes, I go through a bump, the car gets, like the diffs diff out, but it maintains the same arc and I just go on the straight. So those sorts of sections, that's where the Kyosho is better than the JQ, I would say. So it's a give and take. So like I said, I want to maintain the speed, but I want to make the car handle better on power. Then the associated, different to the Kyosho and JQ, because it's not easy the moment you put it on the track. I'm sure for associated drivers who drive it every day and they make their own setups and they're comfortable with it, I'm sure they can have that experience. They just put it down, oh, it's dialed. But I think even them, if they go to very different tracks, I think they will have these moments where it's like, whoa, it's way off or it's way different, and they adapt to it. I really do think so. And yes, it's super fast, but it can be tricky to hang on to it, and tricky also when conditions change. And maybe Craddock was commenting on the Euros, like why were there so many Kyoshos in the main at the Euros? Well, this could be one reason, because the conditions at the Euros changed a lot. So it rained, the track was wet, the track was damp, the track was dry, the track was dusty. Like we saw everything during that race, and they saw everything during the main. And I think that the Kyosho car is just, it's like, it's gonna feel the same in all conditions. Some condition, oh, it just pushes a bit now, but it's still the same car. Whereas I think the Associated might be like, yeah, now I'm in my groove. If someone else were to pick up my transmitter now, they'd do donuts or hit the pipes or whatever. But I'm in my groove and I like how my car drives. Then the conditions change and it's like, oh shit, now the car changes too, and you have to adapt. So the car goes from doing one thing to doing something else. And that's hard to adapt during a race like that for a driver. And we saw Ongaro struggle. He made mistakes. He wasn't himself when the conditions changed. So yeah, that could be one reason. And yeah, I said I was going to say something about the MP10, and that's the wide rear pivot. So I'm sure that Kanai and the boys over there, I'm sure they know the same thing, that yeah, the car is good, feels great, but why is the lap time off? So I'm sure they know the same thing, like they need to find speed somehow. Invisible speed, you know? So they made this pivot, they made it wide on the MP10. And I think that they did that because it sort of naturally helps to increase corner speed. The car won't want to kind of stop in the corner as much. It will maintain speed. That's maybe one reason why the Associated is so fast, because, I mean, look at this thing. This thing is ridiculous. Look how wide that is, the rear pivot. So, was that the right choice for the MP10? I don't know, because they also left a lot of offset in the hub, so the arm isn't that long, so they have a wide pivot and a lot of offset. So, personally, I'm not sure about that setup. And there were some drivers that didn't like it when it first came out. I think because they were just trying to they just figured they could run the same setup, even though the car looked the same, but it's actually very different. So now I think they've started figuring out the setup, and it's good. I'm sure the MP10 is like an MP9, but a bit faster. So I think that's the changes they made. Associated copied Mugen. I'm not sure about I'm not sure about that stuff. So I think I haven't measured an Associated and a Mugen, but I've heard the same thing. Oh, Associated copied X-ray. And then I look at the car and it looks like an X-ray, but then you measure everything and it's not an X-ray. So I don't know. I don't know if they actually copied it or not. I do know that they don't drive the same. I know that a lot of the parts fit though. Some Mugen drivers run Associated parts. Associated drivers run Mugen parts, you know. So yeah, they have a lot of interchangeable parts and the cars are close together, but I don't think that they are identical. I don't think they drive the same on the track. Also, one interesting thing is, I think that the Associated has a lot of steering, always. You can always get that car to turn, but Mugen guys, they often complain about lack of steering. So there's that too. So I don't think that they are identical. I don't think that they drive the same around the track. Isn't it hard to make these comparisons without the Black Edition in the hands of drivers like these? Well, no, not really, because I mean, early on it was because I wasn't sure how good my car was. So let's say like yellow edition, white edition days, I didn't know. But since the last few years, I know it's good enough because Boots drove my car. I mean, it wasn't even that great at the time. In Sweden, he drove my car. And he drove it with a wheel. He normally drives sticks. And he was 1 second faster than me on his best lap. And normally I'm always 1 second off. I'm 1 second off, 1 second or so off the best laps. Ronnie Falk has also driven my car in America, in Spain, probably somewhere else, I can't think right now. He's also driven it, and pretty much the same story. He can post a lap that's a second faster than my best lap. And then that's good actually, because then I have a target and I'm like, God damn it, I'm gonna match this guy. I'm gonna beat this guy's lap time, you know? So the car is plenty capable. But I mean, of course it has its issues and its areas to improve on. Yeah, it has really good steering now. You can really tune it to the track conditions to always have good steering, good controllable linear steering, consistent, depending on speed, on or off throttle, what kind of corner steering, you can get it good. We just need to work on that, on power, on high grip, inconsistent grip, hot weather, those sorts of things. But yeah, I'm sure if whatever top driver pick, just pick a guy, they would be able to do the same with this as they do with whatever other car that they're running. The pillow ball or C-hub thing, I used to think, before I really understood what's going on with the geometry, I used to think that they are very different and they just like, they are different and that's it. You have to choose one, but it's actually not that way. A pillow ball has to be a certain way because of the way it's designed. So a pillow ball suspension, this lower ball and the upper ball, that's basically the kingpin. So if you draw a line through it, it's angled inwards. So when you look from the front, there's going to be a kingpin inclination like this. And the inclination is there because this is also where the upper link ends. So if you had equally long lower and upper arms, you'd have zero camber. I mean, at zero camber, they would be above each other. But you want a shorter upper arm. Okay, so you want a shorter upper arm, but that also changes inclination. So you have to compromise. You're like, well, I want the upper arm to be there and this is the inclination, or I want this inclination. Well, we put the upper arm there. Like, you can't adjust those independently of each other. Also here, because of this ball and you have a bearing there, I mean, the lower arm has to be here. I mean, what are you gonna do, you know? Again, then here you have the same issue then. Okay, I can't adjust this location without changing inclination and arm length at the same time. Like, you can't adjust them independently of each other. Well, C-hub is different. You can. So a C-hub you can actually make like a pillow ball if you want. So you can take your C-hub and you can have, like, this car now has zero inclination, so it's just straight up and down, but the upper link is in a bit, it's short, so you can adjust the upper link independently from your kingpin. The lower mount also, it's further out than where the kingpin is, so you can adjust this also independently from the kingpin. Or then you can take, like on the other car, I have C-hubs and knuckles with inclination, so I can adjust the inclination to whatever I want. I can adjust the upper and lower arm locations wherever I want. If you want to make a C-hub just like a pillow ball, the problem you're gonna face is that the wheel will hit the arm. So that's sort of the problem. That's what that's what limits the C-hub. The fact that you have a steering knuckle and a wheel here, and it's turning without the arm moving or moving out of the way. So the arm is there. So this is going to limit you. The rear of the arm, the front of the arm, and the wheel. That's what limits you with a C-hub. Now the pillow ball, the whole plastic steering knuckle is on a ball and swivels around it. So there's nothing that can hit the wheel. So that's why you can't necessarily get exactly the same geometry, but you can get the same idea and you can get the same handling characteristics with a C-hub. So C-hub, you can do more things. That's why I like the C-hub. You can have, you can tune the C-hub to fit any preference, any driving style, any track condition, and the pillow ball you can't. It's a certain way, and if you don't like it, you're kind of stuck. Very similar, probably talking about the Associated and Mugen. Yeah, but like I said, it's interesting that the Associated has so much steering, and often Associated drivers complain about lack of rear traction, and the rear is all over the place, and then Mugen drivers complain about the car pushing. So there's that. Well, so what other comments do I have about the cars? It was fun to test them, fun to drive them. Okay, maybe like strong points. The Associated was really good. There's this long downhill left-hand corner on the track. If you watch the video I posted before this Facebook Live. So in the middle of the track, you go downhill and it's a long left-hand corner. So in that corner, the Associated was really good because you could accelerate down and then sort of stay on power and go around the whole corner. And it would just go through there, through all the bumps, and didn't want to get unsettled. With the JQ and the Kyosho, you kind of had to be more careful and pick your line a bit and go through it. The Kyosho, like that's the kind of section where, yeah, the Kyosho is easy to drive, but you really have to sort of punch it and focus on going fast down there. The JQ, you can kind of, it's almost like you just sort of cruise down the hill and you're going the same speed. But then with both the Kyosho and the JQ, if you really tried to push it, then you'd lose time. It would get out of shape or hit a bump bad or something. But the Associated, you could really hammer it and just go down the hill. So that's maybe where the wide rear pivot, maintaining corner speed in those kind of sections, and then the pillow ball front end also on power, good steering, good stability. That was a good section for that car. Under braking, it was also good. Braking in bumps. So there's this section, back left hand corner, you step down, you turn, then there's a short straight. That straight was really rough. So you were braking in bumps, and you drop down a bit and turn into a double-double. So there, that was really tricky. I would almost say the JQ was the worst there of the three. So braking in bumps. So that's another area where I need to improve the setup. Because it was, well, Degani knows about this too. You know how, especially if you hit a bump, how that kind of bumper wants to dig in. That's why he runs the 40 plus DE bumper, because he says it's better in that. I can see how that's true. So yeah, but the Associated was the best in that section too. Then both chicanes, like before the straight and after the straight, they were, yeah, it was really fast with the Associated, but you had to get them right. Like you had to go for it, stay on power, right steering input. The Kyosho and JQ, they're super easy there. You just, yeah, way easier in those kind of sections. I glued up some super soft chain links. So what I did was I glued up 3 sets of super soft chain links, same AK. No, actually I used J Concepts gray foam and white wheels and all. I had one OS engine, and I just transferred the engine from car to car because I wanted to have the same engine, same tune, same clutch, same everything. So I drove one car first and switched the engine to another one, then to another one. That's how I did it. What is the benefit with the inclined front hub? So the benefit of the inclination is that when you have inclination on the steering knuckle, it makes initial steering a lot smoother. So you have less initial steering, so the car is smoother into the corner. But then mid to exit, you have more steering. So when you get on power and you want to exit the corner, you have more steering. So it just makes it to where you can drive more aggressively. So you go into that corner aggressively and it's smooth in, and then you get on power and you have a lot of steering to go out. And when it can be bad is, let's say you're on a track that has inconsistent grip, maybe a grippy line and dust in some corners, dust offline. Let's say you go in, it's good, you hit some dust and you want to spin out, you want to lose the rear end. Because that's kind of when the steering kicks in, and you also lose grip at that time. If the car is such that it has a tendency to oversteer and the rear slides, then that's what's going to happen. So in those situations, zero inclination is easier because the steering is more consistent. Yes, maybe you have more initial steering, it feels more aggressive, but you go into a corner like that and the whole car will just slide because the front isn't going to grab. So you have less steering mid to exit compared to the others. So you go in, it's maybe no. What happened? I lost the internet. But then 0 KPI, very smooth mid to exit. Cab drove it too, jackass. Who are you commenting to, Keenan? Yeah. I didn't try an HB. I've tried an HB before. The HB is similar to Kyosho and JQ, I would say. So yeah, the HB suffers, or at least suffered a bit from the associated syndrome of having a disconnected front end and rear end. Like you kind of felt like they weren't from the same car. You'll notice they all run like the lowest hole on the tower on the rear and then a high position on the link to raise the roll center in the rear a bit. And they do that for this reason, I think, because if the lower they have it, the worse that effect gets. So they, angled link in the rear, and it helps a bit. But yeah, it's the similar kind of feel, like it's very stable, it's easy to drive. You put it on the track, you can immediately do laps because it's gonna do what you expect it to do. So similar to Kyosho and JQ style because of that. Neo, which one was the most fun to drive? Actually, I have to say that the Magic Kyosho car, it's a love-hate relationship there. The MP9, it feels really good on tracks like that. So that was probably initially the most fun. I just put it down, I'm like, yeah, this is so good. Did you think going for 10 years with MP9 is the way to polish a car? Or it's be radical like yellow white edition on JQ? Well, the reason that I've made such big changes is because I've been learning all about how the cars work and all that stuff over the years. So I mean, Kyosho has been, or Kanai has been making cars for Kyosho for longer than I've been racing RC. So yeah, I'm sure if I reach that, if I've been doing cars for 30 years, I think 30 years he's been doing this or something like that. if at some point I've been doing it that long, then I'm sure I'll be making smaller changes too, because I kind of figured out what I like to do. I would say that I could make a new car now, and the way I would make a new car is I would make a new car already thinking about the new things I want to try on it. So I make a base, and then I make sure I'm able to make certain changes to see if that's the direction I want to go in. So I make a good base, good solid base, and then there are some things I want to try on that. So it wouldn't be, it won't be, let's say, it won't be the same as any car, but the style will be like, what I'm shooting for is this kind of MP9, like you just put it on the track, oh, it feels so good, but it's fast. So you put it on the track, oh, it feels so good, but your slowest lap is the best. And then when you push it, it's like going down that hill with the associated. Like you just go for it. It's not gonna catch anything, it's not gonna flip over, you go. It's like combining all these elements. I mean, you can't perfect everything because everything's a compromise, but you can sort of, like a mixing table, you know, when you slide up the volumes and all that stuff, like you slide one up and another one goes down. Like you improve something on a car, something else gets a bit worse. So you can adjust how you prioritize the different aspects of a car. And yeah, I just want to make a good base where that's possible. You should Facebook Testman and invite his thoughts on cars. Yeah, I haven't seen Testman. I mean, he must have got a girlfriend. He's just disappeared. We have to fix that without the front cut. What are you talking about? Do what X-Ray did and make a pillow ball conversion. No, I mean, I have inclination. If you want pillow ball, then run that. GQ is the best. Just buy it and be happy. That's what Jay Smoker says. Soft arms versus hard arms. Just hard arms for the win. That's one problem we've had, is like our plastics are a bit too soft. And that's one of the reasons we suffer in hot weather. That's why we make those carbon arm stiffeners that we run on the rear. They didn't really work on the front too well. But the plastics is one issue, because all the plastics, like gearboxes, arms, links, everything gets soft, you know, so it's not that good. I definitely think that the Black Edition performs better when it's like below 20 degrees. And then when you go like 30, 35, let's say 35, like Philippines and, you know, summertime in Southern Europe, then you can tell that there's some performance drop there. I've never tried the TLR-X. I guess it could be, I don't know. It's not really like, that TLR doesn't really interest me. Because I can't, no offense, but there's nothing on that car that really interests me. I mean, I'm honest, like, Kyosho, it's interesting to me. It's really good, like Mugen Associated, yeah, it's interesting. HB and Serpent, yeah, I think Serpent is actually one of the most underrated cars. I think the Serpent is better than the HB from what I've seen. Like just durability, wrenching on it, and performance on track. So yeah. If I would try cars next, I'd probably try a Serpent, Mugen to see how it's different to the Associated. Or maybe an X-Ray. Maybe you should try an X-Ray. Yeah, that could be interesting. You're too soft. The carbon stiffeners work best mounted on top of the arms. Interesting. Answer your phone. I'm on my phone. I'm doing a Facebook Live. Now we're going to rebuild the rear end. I forgot at one point we need to do this, but let's do this right now. Let's get this done. So I'm going to talk a bit about a rear end setup here. What to do to get this rear end dialed in, as dialed as my phone stand right now. This has got to be the dumbest stand ever. The scrap your crap thing, I still have the Durangos because we're gonna make some killer videos coming up. Oh, we've got some things planned, don't worry. Okay, this is another update we have to do. So, you know, when you take the rear diff out here, everything's flopping around, you know. We don't like this. This isn't 2008 anymore. Okay, so here goes. Rear diff. Okay, now actually pay attention. JQ drivers, pay attention. This is really important advice coming up, because this year, and yeah, especially this year, we've had some strippage here of the ring and pinion. Now, personally, I think it's because the gearbox molds are 10 years old. So in 10 years, we've used and abused them quite a bit. And I think the bearing housing, it's just not as tight anymore. So the bearing is a bit off. It's just everything's getting a bit wobbly in there. You know, when it's brand new, it's fine. You run the car, everything breaks in. I think the mesh is a bit too loose. So I'll show you what to do here. Lico from Mexico was asking about this too. So now pay attention, folks. Pay attention. Okay. Okay, so rebuild on the rear end. Just gonna change the diff oil. I still have my HP sauce diff here. The HP sauce has dried out. It's interesting. HP sauce, good for diffs. That diff, I'm gonna give it to Max to run at the next race. He doesn't watch these anyway, you won't know. So if you have any questions, go ahead and ask. I'm gonna rebuild this with 8,000 oil. I'm feeling like 8,000. Anything on the Durango that interests you? Yes, actually, Durangos are very interesting to me because Durangos will feature heavily in the videos that we're gonna shoot. And I think it's gonna be rather entertaining. Well, these outdrives are starting to look a bit worn out. Luckily, the gypsy I have some, actually, I shouldn't say gypsy. I'm just really professional because I have some pre-broken in outdrives that are just right. Just broken in slightly. Look, this one is not looking too good. This one, we're gonna put in the pile for Max also. Nice parts box. This is the best parts box ever. It's so good. Doubles as a car stand. Really good. Okay, so when you rebuild your diff, check this out. Let's cover this again. Maybe some people forget. O-ring. O-rings wear out. You can even see that they wear out. Change this shit. Don't complain to me that the diff leaks if you don't change your goddamn O-ring. O-rings are cheap. Change it. Actually, I have no idea what the O-rings cost. Why is this guy saying S-Works? Oh, to test the S-Works. Oh yeah, that's a good idea. S-Works could be interesting to test also. So, new O-rings, rebuild diff, new O-rings. Gasket looks good. You know me, never waste a good gasket. Dry that thing. Carefully, don't rip it. Perfect, we can reuse that gasket. That's the level we're at here at JQ Racing. We reuse our gaskets. JQ should come from China with just the right amount of wear. Have squads of 10-year-olds drive them. Well, it's just, that's part of the game, you know, you have to break in the car. JQ should come with new engines, so you break in the engine and the car together. Then when the engine's tuned, the car is dialed. Okay, so use cheaper paper to dry the diff to save money. That's why the lights are on, folks. Okay, here we go. I think I need to refill my favorite tool. I don't know if this is a tool. Favorite accessory. My Ultimate Racing Super Teflon Grease syringe. I love this. So we put some, we lube up the axle here. Very important step. Look how sticky this is, this stuff. So, if you're complaining that your diffs are leaking, you didn't change your O-rings, you didn't use a syringe to put some Ultimate Racing Teflon oil or grease on your axles, don't even complain to me. Don't talk to me, okay? I don't want to hear it. Okay, now comes the tricky part. So I have some pre-broken in out drives. I need to figure out which side to put these on. Okay, I need full concentration right now. I can't talk to you. I need to figure out which side to put these on, okay? I need to imagine the wheels turning and all that shit. Like, engine goes that way. Which way does it go? That way. Center diff. Yes, this way. Drive shaft. Out drive. Diff is turning. Diff out drive turns the drive shaft. Okay, this way. This is correct. That's worn out there. Let's see. Let's make sure that this is actually a set. Yes, it is. That's amazing. Okay, so, okay, everyone focus now. The next two things are really important. I'll actually take the more important thing now. Okay, Liko, are you here? Okay, someone's asking about setup. I'll try and remember this question. What setup change do you think makes the most difference when you have oversteer exiting corners? So you have oversteer exiting corners. Let me take that later on. Okay, listen folks, really important advice. Someone has been stripping these because our molds are 10 years old and they're a bit sloppy, okay? Rest assured, we have a fix. You see, when we made the molds, we made them so you don't need to shim the diffs. We just pop the diff in, it's perfect. Well, 10 years down the line, you have to use some shims. Other car brands, you need to put shims on when the damn thing is brand new. So really, please don't complain. So grab some shims. I have some Ultimate Racing ones. Ultimate Racing, check them out. BHRC is selling Ultimate Racing stuff. They have all this good stuff. They have this syringe I use, my favorite syringe, and they have these shims too. So these shims are, let me check. What are these shims? What size are these? Okay. 8 times 10 mil. Times 0.1. 8. Now you can see it. 8 times 10 mil times 0.1. Put 1 on. Put another on. I'm going to put 2 on. Put them there. Put the bearing on. Good to go. Outdrive. Put it in the wrong way. Lube the groove up. Pop the O-ring in there. Shims. Remember, 2 shims. Outdrive. And we're good. I told you this on Monday, I didn't know. See this gear here? See which way this is? Teeth down. You know why? Because while you're doing all of that bullshit, it's clean. All the oil runs off it. I still use a microfiber cloth, dry it a bit. Like new, it's good. Put it in here. So remember, 2 shims are there between the bearing and the diff cup. They're gonna push this that away. They're gonna push the gear close to the pinion. Boom, that's the solution. Okay, we need some oil. $8,000 this time. Because why not? What's that white stuff? The white stuff. The white stuff. The white stuff is here. From my favorite Ultimate Racing syringe. Ultimate Racing Gearbox Teflon Grease. UR0906. BHRC in America. Fuck you too, Ben Niblet. Nibbles. You know, I have a funny story about Ben Niblet. Me and Ben's son, Callum, we were racing e-buggies at Neobuggy one year. And this year they had this ridiculous front section where you kind of go on the front straight into a bomb hole and jump out. Now, me and Mini Nibbles were racing, and we had a slight racing incident going into this bomb hole. So when we exited the bomb hole, I exited stage left into the pits, into Ben Niblet's lap. So basically, Callum punted me into his dad's lap in the pits. Do you remember that? Yeah, this Teflon grease is really good on diff out drives, I have found. It kind of makes it a bit harder to turn, but that's fine. It's a differential. You put silicone oil there to make it harder to turn. So don't worry about that. It's good. The good thing about it is it lasts a long time, so you have less wear on the diff part and on the axle. Also, it keeps the diff oil in the diff. Yeah, it's good stuff. Okay, so then the last part of diff assembly, I put the oil in there. I put the last gear here. I turn it a bit, line it up with a pin, line this up, then it will be easy to close. Wipe the excess oil off. And now I'll answer that question. Someone had a question. What's the best way to, what was it? What's the best way to adjust the car when it's loose on exiting corners? So you have oversteer when you exit corners. It wants to fishtail. So there are many things you could do. Kind of depends a bit on the car, but these things would help. If I had that issue, then I would look at my diff setup. Is my center diff too thick? Is my rear diff too thick? That's gonna make the rear want to step out when you accelerate outer corners. Do I have too much caster on the car? On a loose track, if I'm running 20 degrees on the C-hub or something, you know, that can actually make the car want to fishtail when you exit corners. Too much caster. Less caster could help. Make sure this sealing surface is dry. There's no oil there. It's going to help seal the diff, so you don't complain about leaking diffs. People, pay attention. What else could you do? What do I do if my car is loose exiting corners? Well, like I said before, sometimes if it's sort of a mid-corner issue, mid to exit, it could also help if you're running kingpin inclination, not to run that, run the 0 instead. If you're running a JQ, you can adjust that. What else? Sometimes if you have a very long rear link, if you shorten the rear link on the hub, or the tower actually, but if you shorten the rear link, it could help the car square up and go more straight. Could be also, I mean, especially if you are running an HB, for example, like I kind of hinted at earlier, if you increase the angle of the rear link, that's going to help also. So lower it on the tower, raise it on the hub. That's going to help with the fishtailing outer corners also. Okay, so we rebuilt this. We put the 2 shims here. We're good to go with some 8000. Add some of this on the teeth here too. It's good for these teeth also. Lube them up. Insert on. This insert was made for the old outdrives, which were a bit smaller. You know, a professional guy would probably ream this out so it would fit easier, but we do it the gypsy way. So I mentioned this again, like I did yesterday. Well, let me just put this gearbox cover on. Lunsford titanium screws where I can. Lightweight. Okay, so when I rebuild my cars, I don't like to take the center dog bones or universals off. Why bother? When I build it to stay on, okay? And I know that the bearings last a certain amount of time, so it's not time for a rebuild yet. They pretty much last as long as the universal does. So when I replace the universal, replace the bearings, clean the surfaces, Loctite, thread lock that grub screw in really good, tighten it so you snap the tool or at least strip the screw. It's good, it's gonna stay in there, again for the lifetime of the universal. So yeah, no need to take this thing off, just leave it on. Rear arm height. So this is a good setup option. So normally when I rebuild my car, I always check, okay, what pills do I have in here? Do I really want to be running these? So on the C block, I'm running here 0.5 hold down right now. I run this fairly often. Then D block, I'm running the white edition square insert towing plate because I can get less towing. So I've talked about towing before. Either run 3 degrees or 1.5 or less. When you run 2.5, it's a bad compromise. You don't get the positives of either setting. So when you run 3 degrees, you have good rear grip. The rear doesn't slide a lot, it's just stock. You have good traction everywhere. When you run 1.5, you still have good grip with the JQ car, but the rear end will kind of slide a bit. It doesn't want to catch. So it increases corner speed a lot because the rear is sliding, but it's still good enough traction to where you can kind of slide around the corner a bit, you accelerate, it's going to accelerate straight. So I really like to run 1.5. Then let's say you would run 2. The problem is it doesn't slide as much as 1.5, but it doesn't grip as much as 3 either. So you have a car that it doesn't grip completely and it doesn't slide completely. So it's in between. It's like grip, slide, grip, slide. It's not as good. So run 3 or 1.5. Don't run the ones in between. That's my recommendation anyway. At most, yeah, I would say like 1 to 1.5. Yeah, 1 to 1.5 or then 3. Yeah, that's the deal. That's what we're dealing with here. And anti-squat, 1 degree is always safe. It's always going to be good. 2 degrees could be faster, but you could suffer in the rough stuff. And actually something I want to try now, I haven't really tried in a long time, is just to run even more. Like try 3 degrees. Try to really max out the anti-squat and see what happens. Okay, hinge pins are straight, arms are good. I'm going to stick with the same setup for now. Next time I go to the track, I'm going to try that more anti-squat. Aluminium gearbox screws. These save a lot of weight. Here again, these nuts in the front, people always complain that these nuts pop out. Well, that's why I glue them in. I use tire glue, CA glue, glue them in. Also, when I tighten the screw, I put my finger on here just to hold it in, just to make sure it doesn't pop out. Make sure everything's free after you tighten those screws down. Put the sway bar back on. Using all the aluminium balls in the sway bar links also. again, just to save weight. I'm running the carbon tower, which is an option part. Wait, let me check here what's happening with my... I don't know. My phone isn't responding. Anyway, carbon fiber tower, which is an option part, and I'm running the high HB wing mount. So I just cut that bracing here and push the lower screw, whatever this is called, the lower part of this wing mount. I push it together a bit and it fits in the original holes. And then I attach the wing mount and then I drill through here to drill new holes in the shock tower to put the screws through and nuts. So it's really easy to attach this wing mount actually. So just Dremel this brace away, push these in a bit, attach here, drill all the way through, and you have an HB wing mount in the car. The reason I'm running this is for lightweight, because I just wanted to make the car as light as I could. So I'm running all the JQ aluminium option parts for lightweight, this carbon tower, radio tray, center diff plates, HB wing mount, all the gold screws are THEQuagraine aluminium, THEQuagraine nuts, also Lunsford titanium screws, titanium turnbuckles, but I also have some PSM aluminium ones I'm running on my other car. And yeah, just wanted to make the car lightweight. And these hubs are new. So these are actually about to be released. This hole, which is short here, is actually the long hole on the old hubs. So there's a long hole and an even longer one here that you can use. Also, this hub, the insert is bigger here when you run the 8x16 bearing and universals, because the same hub you can run CVDs. So the CVD pin is captured inside the bearing here, like on, you know, on other CVD cars, like HP has it, Serpent, Associated, Mugen. They all have this type of CVD where the joint goes into the bearing here. So we now have that option too. We have CVDs and these hubs, new option parts. What else about the rear end? This is a good thing to try. So anytime you have your wheels off, because this is something that can happen when you crash, is you bend the outer hinge pin. So you can even just try like this with everything attached. You turn it and you can see if it's bent, because you can see the hub wobble as you turn it. So you can see if the screw is bent, and obviously there'll be some resistance too. So these are turning easily, no movement. So I know that the outer hinge pins are straight. I don't need to take them out. I just turn them when in the car. Okay, so now I shimmed this and the mesh is perfect. There's no gap there. Tiny gap. Yeah. So next time we'll go over the engine, clutch, center diff, mount, brakes, that sort of stuff. What do I check? What do I rebuild there? Switch to a lithium-ion battery for 30-gram savings. Yeah, or just a smaller LiPo too. Could try that. Okay, so remember, when you run 1.5 toe, you are reducing the toe so much that you're lengthening the wheelbase. So run the hub all the way forward. All the way forward is the same as with 3 degrees, the standard setting of 1 shimmy in front. So 3 degrees, 1 shimmy in front. 1.5 degrees, no shim in the front. That's the standard setting. Then if you want to move the hub back, then you move it back and you have 1 shim in front with 1.5. So yeah, remember that. And I think that's it. Time for bed. It's not depending by the track condition. What do you mean? What was that in regards to? Yeah, the high wing mount is actually lower than my high wing mount. I wish it was higher, but I wanted to do this for weight savings. It was, yeah, it was a good amount. Okay, are we good to go here? Thank you. E-buggy.